We're live, Jack. This is live, Jack. Jack, I think you're going to have to unmute your mic on that side. Sorry, guys, a bit of technical difficulties.
So I'm not the only one with technical difficulties.
I thought it was going to be me today since it was a bit rusty, but I think he's disappeared. We just talked about how good his laptop was. It caught up with the whole new system and stuff like that. But yeah.
I suppose while we're waiting for him, how are we all doing?
Yeah, all good, Paul. Yourself?
Yeah. Just missing the football today and yesterday, but
yeah, as I say, before we come on, I was in Egypt, so I've not really caught up with much of the football, but I have been keeping an eye on scores and stuff like that. What about yourself, Ravi?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of missed the first. It was basically the entire first round of games. I was in Australia at the time, and with the time difference, I just couldn't catch any of the games. But no, sorry. Since I've been back, it's like I've only really caught the England game and a few other games here and there. But yeah, it does feel weird that there's no football on today.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one altogether. I think, like, even since obviously winning the Champions League and whatever, it's just been a bit of an odd one for me to try and, especially with my nation not being in the Euros, it's a bit of a hard one for me to catch on. But when I do have time, I try and catch the England games or any of the girls playing. So I have. So yeah.
Yeah.
There has been a few interesting, obviously, results and a few interesting teams that are no longer in there anymore. We'll touch on that a wee bit with, obviously, the Netherlands being put out in our group of death, which was England, Netherlands, Wales, and obviously France. So we'll touch on that a wee bit on that one. But what are we making of, like, the France-England game and things like that?
I think it was going to be a tough one to go into against France. I mean, you look at that group, and there were three teams there that were all going to go into be fighting for those two positions. And that opening game going in as defending champions, there's all that pressure on you to perform. And the other team, France, they were up for it. They set us the challenge and they came out on top. So it was almost the wake-up call that we needed, that we weren't just going to walk through this, get through to a final and play Spain in the final. It was this is a tough competition. We haven't got the home support behind us that we had 3 years ago. And they made it difficult for themselves for the remaining two games, because we were then straight into a knockout competition in effect. But after that game, they sort of pulled themselves together, got that great result against the Netherlands, and made it through the group.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Ravi, but I got the feeling watching that game that England went out with a bit of confidence behind them in the France game, thinking it was. But I don't know how you would feel about that one.
So for me, I missed the game. I was in Australia, so I didn't see England play that at all. But what struck me, and the comparison that I can kind of like directly make, is the 2010 Men's World Cup, where Spain were overwhelming favourites going into it, and they lost their first game to Switzerland. They then went on to win every other game and the entire championship, but that was kind of like the galvanizing wake-up call that they needed to be like, okay, we can't take this lightly. Even though we are one of the favorites, we should treat every game as a final and play this with 100% intensity and seriousness. And that's exactly what England have done in those next two group games, where 4-0 and 6-1 across two games is genuinely brilliant at any level of international competition. So we've gone through, but that was the wake-up call that we needed to take this 100% seriously.
Yep, Jack, I'll ask you this question, then I'll pass it on back over to you to take over yourself. But were you shocked with that lineup that England put up for the first game of France against France?
Yeah, I'm hoping you guys can hear me, and I can no longer hear the opening titles on a loop, so I think that's a good sign. But yeah, no, I was surprised we saw so many players that had spent all season injured. I thought Lauren Hemp, would be on the bench. I thought Lauren James would be on the bench. And I thought Georgia Stanway probably should have been on the bench. And we went with all these players that had been injured, that had been out, had not played much football, and then acted surprised when the team seemed undercooked and not quite ready. So whereas the French were on it, I mean, they were seriously, seriously good. I agree with what Ravi's just said about Spain losing their first game and winning the whole competition. Argentina did it against Saudi Arabia in the previous World Cup. And I even think back to the Italians in 2006 losing their opening game. So there does always seem to be quite a big theme of teams losing their opening game and then going into that knockout phase earlier. And yeah, just having to get through it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you've seen the England games, Laura. I mean, I'm interested in, especially that Netherlands one next, where obviously they had to come out, they had to perform. And I think we probably saw one of the best England performances I can remember, full stop. So, yeah, just interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that England performance reminds me of the time of the game at Leeds before the last Euros. I remember being at that game. It was me, James, and my niece that was at that game, actually. And that performance that day reminded me of that friendly with the Netherlands before we went to the last Euros. But seeing the fast-paced movement, just that little tweak, bit shocked that it was Beth Mead that was taken out and obviously replaced, but obviously Serena seen something there that she could change and obviously brought in Ella Toon that made obviously such a big difference in that game. But yeah, I wasn't hopeful. I did say to James before that game started, I think England will get beat because I thought morale would have been so low. But watching it, England they stepped up to the plate and of course obviously battered the Netherlands, and yeah, a game that they gave them, and obviously then had to give the Netherlands something to think about going into the France game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ravi, one of the big criticisms that England got after that first game was the absence of leaders in the team. And there was this whole big thing made about Millie Bright and Mary Earps being missing. And then for the second game against the Netherlands, for them to come out so strong. And when you look at that team, I mean, I completely disagreed with a lot of criticism because you think Leah Williamson is a top leader. You've got Lucy Bronze, who's been there, done it with all different clubs. You've got Georgia Stanway, Kira Walsh, Beth Mead. I mean, Yeah, just what did you think to the lack of leaders sort of thing, and just how well did they do to respond, like Laura said, in terms of morale and stuff for that second game? Because I mean, it could have been so easy to hit them behind and gone straight out.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of great things need to be said about the team and how they responded to that loss. I do think though, like there are certain personality types that I don't necessarily think are good substitutes. So people like Mary Earps, if she's not going to be the first choice goalkeeper, she might not necessarily be the right personality type to then help the first choice goalkeeper, for example. So I think where those leaders come out gives an opportunity for other people to support the team as needed, and other players who are ready for that step up to make that step up. Like Hannah Hampton has been a great goalkeeper for Chelsea, as much as I hate to admit it. And, you know, she's been worthy of that number one shirt. And I think, you know, she's now coming into this where she's, you know, got the help of Leah Williamson at the back, along with Lucy Bronze, Alex Greenwood. They're all very experienced defenders here. Like, they've been in the team for God knows how many years, and however many caps between them. So, you know, they've all come together to, you know, help support Hannah Hampton in goal, as well as, you know, some of the newer midfielders and forwards in the team, because, you know, it's not even just the two that steps out, like Earps and Bright. It's also the loss of people like Ellen White, Jill Scott. They were in the team when we won the Euros last time, and they were amazing sort of peripheral players, but like were great for morale in the team. So, you know, that sort of vacant gap has kind of been filled by players that are wanting to step up. And I think they really did that in those last two games.
No, yeah, absolutely agree with you. I mean, Paul, I'm going to ask you about, obviously, someone we've all had a massive eye on this tournament, and I think it's been absolutely outstanding. But just Alessia Russo, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a striker be so unlucky that she's had 2 goals chalked off due to someone else being offside, and ever so marginal. The amount of work she's done. So, yeah, just your thoughts on Alessia Russo, and yet again, how lucky are we to have her as our striker?
Yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, she was, she broke into that England team. She scored a couple of great goals at the Euros, and with the retirement of Ellen White, she really had some big shoes to fill, and she's done it. And this tournament, she's just come out, like you say, she had those 2 goals offside through no fault of her own. She's got 3 assists as well in the group stage already, and this is for a number 9. So it just shows that her work rate, she's not just there to score the goals, she's there to play for the team. And I think she's probably, there's 2 players that I think are probably sort of player of the round so far, and I think she is one of those that's up there with them. And we are just so lucky to have her, not just at country level, but obviously we've got her at club level as well. So, and the experience she must have got in this past year, going through that Champions League stage, right from the qualifiers right through to the final, playing the best teams, the best players in the world domestically, as obviously her game has come on so much in those last 3 years. And this could be the big one for her to retain the Euro.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, before we go on to some of the other teams, I mean, I think it's been an incredible tournament so far. I think the other player, Laura, who has been really, really good for England, and it almost surprises me every single time I see her, because she goes, I think, quite under the radar and quite underrated at times. But I'm going to go with Ella Toone, and just her impact in the England squad as a player, and the way she goes into the gaps between midfield and defence, and just is completely clinical as well with her finishes. Like, do you think she cemented her place now in Serena's 11 as that midfielder? Because I mean, that's not easy to do with Serena's 11s. They're usually pretty stuck in stone.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Jack, there, Serena's quite tough on her starting 11. Like, she knows exactly where she wants that person to be and who she wants to be in that position. But as I touched on, it was a bit of a shock that obviously Beth Mead get pulled out for the Netherlands and Ellerton was put in. But I do think it's the correct decision. The way, as you say, the way Ella, she just manages to pull players out of position to allow her to follow. But I don't know if also anybody else has noticed that it also allows Kira Walsh to pull over as well on the sideline. So it has a link up between Lucy Bronze, Kira Walsh, Ella Toon, Georgia Stanley at times. And then, of course, it allows Alessia Russo to pull over as well, which we all know, we've seen it with themselves, that defenders always like to follow Alessia. So it means then there's gaps through that middle for whoever's there to then create something, which we've touched on when people have said, oh, Alessia Russo, she's not scoring goals. But they're not noticing the other work that she's doing around in Ella Toon, and Alessia Russo linking up that way as well has also been a good statement for England as well. I think Sweden will struggle against that. Sweden, I think, will be another kind of Bramall Lane. I don't know. I could be a bit thingy there. We're going a bit ahead, but I can see Sweden struggling against that Ella Toon link up with whoever she's in the middle with. And yeah, you're right. She has shocked a lot of people this Euros, and I think she's really went away. And obviously, she's been through a lot in her life recently, and she just went away and thought, you know what, it's something I need to think about, and I'll use it to my advantage. And she's doing really well.
Yeah, United fans won't like me, but I wonder if she could be a player who gets a move after this Euros for sure, especially with the absence of signings that seem to be going on at United at the moment. I mean, just going on to Switzerland, Ravi, they've really impressed me so far in terms of their performances and the way that they played against Germany. I mean, obviously, our very own Champions League winner, Stina Blackstenius, has been in the goals, Lena Hurtig's been in the goals, and they seem absolutely full of confidence, don't they?
Yeah, I've really liked this Sweden team actually. I think it feels like they've underperformed at the last couple of tournaments, and I think they're sort of like coming out of their shell a little bit more. Like they've always struck me as a very physical team, and don't get me wrong, they have been quite physical in some of these games and dominating those sort of duels and one-on-one battles, but like they seem a lot freer. Like they're not like playing within themselves or anything like that anymore. And that result against Germany was genuinely brilliant. Like I had Germany winning all 3 games pretty easily. So didn't expect Sweden to win that. I mean, we're looking at this going like, Sweden's probably an easier game than Germany would have been had we met them in the next round. But I just think, this Sweden team has a lot going for them. They will, impose their physicality on us. But I think, I've got confidence in the way that we've played in the last couple of games that we can get a result against it. But yeah, I've been really enjoying the way that they play.
I think we've lost Jack again.
Technical
difficulties. He's jinxed himself well and truly.
Yeah.
But touching obviously on like Sweden, I do think Sweden is one of the dark horses to obviously to win it this year. I think that I was saying in the group chat the other day, that. Sorry, 2 seconds. Tell Jack back in. These devices not connected, and there we go. There he is.
There
He's back.
I'm not sure what's going on. I've gone on to 5G now, so I'm hoping that's going to bring me more luck than whatever was happening before. Yeah, no, just sticking on Sweden
again. That Written Canada, I think I think she's been like a really outstanding player for Sweden in this Euros. I've seen a couple of clips of like the Sweden games and whatever, and oh my god, that's another one that's just taking the Euros by storm, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Paul, I'm just going to say, we're very lucky to have Stina Blackstenius as our second striker, aren't we? Because I mean, she's still looking comfortably one of the best strikers in Europe. I mean, I'm thinking amongst the other teams, but yeah, I mean, her finish in the game against Germany was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, do you think the
fantastic.
Euros is going to just persuade, I think, Arsenal to go, you know what, she's our second striker. Let's have her, Michelle, and Russo as our three going forward next season.
I did really hope so. I think as well, she's had 2 goal line clearances as well, so she could have had a couple more goals in this tournament already. And what I'm interested to see, and I did say this in our chat the other day, is how little she's being given offside, considering that we've got the VAR for this competition compared to the WSL where she's constantly being flagged. So it does that go to show that the officials in the WSL are not up to scratch and they're not doing their job properly because she isn't actually offside. Whereas the technology now is saying, well, no, she's not offside in the Euros. So how can one player go from being constantly offside in the WSL to not being offside at all in the Euros? So I think that's something that needs to be looked at for next season in the WSL. Is what we've said it many a time, the quality of the officials in that competition. But yeah, but Stina is just she's been good for us all season, you know, coming off the bench, and she obviously got that goal in Lisbon, and now she's just following it through in the Euros as well. And I think between her and Lesia, they are probably my 2 players of the group stage so far.
No, definitely. They're both definitely on absolute fire. And yeah, as I say, that finish from Stina, I was like, yeah, let's have some of that at Arsenal, please. I mean, I've seen the chats talking about it as well, but I think it would be completely wrong to not touch on the Welsh in the group. I mean, what a story it's been from them getting into it. I mean, I celebrated their goal against England. I'm just going to hold my hands up. I thought it was the best goal of that game as well, to be fair, if I'm honest. I mean, what a pass and finish. But yeah, Laura, I mean, obviously, it's Wales' first time. We didn't expect them to pick any points. But yeah, just talk a little bit about their supporters and just how you think they can build upon this in the future. Because I think we all have seen that the Euros and the international tournaments are better off for having the Welsh in it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like Northern Ireland when on the last Euros as well, like they took a large following as well. So it's been refreshing to see, obviously, another one of the nation's teams in it that took a large following the way they did. I think they've just really took it in their stride. I just wish their manager would have shut her mouth the day before the England game, because he was giving it large, we're not here to make up numbers. I just wish managers like that would just take it in their stride. What she did, after the England game, she went along, says thanks to all the Wales fans and whatever, and shook the hand. But I just like a team like Wales, you know, looking in that you know they're going to be one of the first teams out. And it's sad, really, because that's when the FA really needs to be putting as much support into a team like Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and obviously putting as much focus into those teams as much as they do the England squad. But of course, it's all different. It's all different FAs, isn't it? But you would just wish that sometimes the FAs would just come together in the heart of the nation for teams like that. But give them the dues. They got the 2 goals that no one ever thought they would have even got. One against France and, of course, one against England. Yeah, hats off to them. And by the looks of it, the manager was talking at the end that she's hoping that there's obviously going to be more work put into this team going forward, and hopefully there's another chance where we could see them in another big competition and doing a lot better than what they did in the Euros.
Absolutely. I mean, Ravi, do you think this calls for almost an expanded tournament for the Euros, like another 4 to 8 teams to be put in? Because I mean, they've brought so many fans, and I know that there's quite a few nations like that. They're just on the edge, and surely they're only going to get better by having the exposure to tournaments. Because I mean, these group stages have felt quick. I don't know if it's just been me, but they feel like they've whizzed by. And in comparison to other tournaments, there hasn't been that many games. So would you like to see it opened up to another 4 or 8 teams?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would be nice to expand it, but I think, I don't know how much of that is because the men's tournaments have a lot more teams, and we see a lot more sort of league games, group games, and a few more knockout rounds, and all that. And obviously, the Men's World Cup is getting expanded again for 2026. So I think as the standard of football improves across the women's game, and more teams become professional and more leagues sort of get that investment going, I think we will see expansion coming later down the line, because this kind of does give me vibes from sort of say 20 years ago when you're looking at a smaller like Men's World Cup or Euros, where you do have your big teams and your smaller teams, and there is that gulf equality. And now you look at the men's game now, and there's so many sort of smaller nations that do constantly get to big tournaments regularly, and they are going toe to toe with the traditional big teams. So I think if teams do qualify for the Euros and the World Cup, let them be. Leave it as a merit-based system, because if you just put almost every team in there, then you will get big score lines. You will get a lot more disparity between the quality of team. And I think having these tighter games and better quality, even games, I think is a much more enjoyable tournament.
Yeah, fair enough. Probably me just being greedy for more football, because I mean it has been a really high entertaining tournament, and maybe that is what you want, to come out of the group stages wanting more, rather than thinking, that dragged on a little bit. I mean, Paul, I'm going to ask you about arguably the team of the tournament so far, which is the Swiss, and the way they've managed to finally get out their groups in that home game. Lia Volti's been on absolutely fire, even though her knee looks like it's being held up by probably more sticky tape than my phone at the moment on the back of this. But yeah, just how big do you think it is for Switzerland to have got through? And I don't know if you watched the last game of their groups, but that 92nd, 93rd minute equaliser to get through. I mean, I know they've got Spain next, but they seem to have really taken this tournament in their stride, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were a bit like us 3 years ago. They've got the backing of a nation behind them. You look at the stadiums; they're absolutely full every single time, especially when Switzerland are playing. And yeah, they've had that interesting group where you think, well, actually, any 4 of them could probably have gone through before any football was played. So they were in an interesting group. But yeah, Lia Volti's been sort of led them out and been playing absolutely fantastically. I'm a little bit concerned for her coming back to us after the tournament with her knee in the state that it's looking in. So wondering how long she's going to be out on the sidelines for with us, and whether Rene's looking at that and thinking, do I need another midfielder to bring in or something like that? But I mean, all these tournaments, if the host nation goes out in the group stage, I think they lose something. And I think the most recent one that I can compare it to is probably the World Cup out in Qatar, where they got knocked out in the group stage. It just seemed to lose a little bit of something. So,
I totally agree.
I mean, they have got Spain in the next round. So, the world champions against the host nation. I think that's going to be a really good game. Really good game. And I think anyone that isn't Spanish is probably going to be supporting the Swiss.
I agree.
Looking forward to that one.
I mean, Laura, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Firstly, do you have an issue with Lia Volti being clearly injured and dragging herself out to play these extra games, potentially at the detriment of the start of next season for Arsenal, but obviously captain her country at her home Euros? And then my second one is about the other midfielder playing next to her. I believe her name's Rutala. I don't know who she plays for, but she has looked some serious midfielder, hasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, as a bit of a concern, obviously, but I think we knew Wally had issues going into this Euros anyway. Obviously, coming off the back end of the season with Arsenal, we've seen how much scrapping she had, going into certain games for us. But of course, a player will know themselves if they can play a game or if they can't. So I suppose it's just about maybe just keeping an eye on it, making sure everything's all right between club and country, making sure that there's communication there, that Wally is fine for that. Again, it's down to a player to turn around and say, I can't do this, or it's down to club to then say, no, she's not doing it. So obviously there's got to be some kind of communication there between the club and the country as well, and the player. So I wouldn't say I'm not too concerned, considering obviously watching Vicky pull over and how she's been in the Euros as well. If Wally wasn't to make it coming into the start of next season, then I'm not worried about that. Of course, then you've got Kyra Cooney-Cross as well, who's got an off season, and has obviously been working on herself as well while she's been away. So, and then of course you've got Kimmy Little, which will obviously be fresh going into next season as well. So, if there is a problem there with Wally coming back with any kind of injuries, then I'm pretty sure it'll be dealt with before we go into the season. And the other player, as I say, I have seen little snippets. I obviously seen the highlights of the last game where they obviously got the equalisers to go through, and the other midfielders looking pretty good. Maybe one, I'm sure a few WSL teams is probably looking at to maybe take to their club, or Arsenal possibly looking at bringing her to Arsenal, but we never know. We'll see when the season starts and put it out. So we will.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I don't have a problem with Lia Volti playing these games. I think you're only ever going to get one home tournament, aren't you, at the age of 31, 32. And I think the form she's showing is actually probably really promising, because it's not affecting her in any of the games whatsoever. And she seems to be playing like almost a 26-year-old Lia Volti at her absolute best. So yeah, hopefully that will be all good things. I mean, Ravi, I'm going to ask you a really unfair question here. And I think it's probably one that everyone's wondering, including the Swiss team themselves. How does the Swiss beat Spain? Because, I mean, we'll talk about Spain in a minute, but, I mean, yeah, have you any ideas on how they can do it, and just how do you rate their chances in this quarterfinal?
I mean, I think it's going to be hopes, prayers, and a little bit of divine intervention. But like I always, when it comes to international tournaments, just think on any given day, anyone can win a game of football. And all the conversations that everyone was having before we played the Champions League final before against Barcelona was, oh yeah, Barcelona will win this game. And we all, I remember doing the preview podcast for this, and we all said, there's a chance. So I think, even if it's a 1% chance, they'll still hold on to that. And with the home support, you'd like to think that that'll be like an extra player on the pitch. It's the old cliche of the 12th person. But I just think if they can keep disciplined, if they can keep to a game plan, and try and see it through, then I don't really see why they can't dream of winning it. Spain have been very good. Like, Alexia Putellas looks like she's back to her absolute best, which is a frightening proposition for both club and country. But I just think if they dream, they could do the impossible if things went their way. And we were the beneficiaries of that against Barcelona. Who knows? Switzerland could do the whole thing and emulate Greece in the men's 2004 Euros.
Yeah, I think the Switzerland manager needs to get on the phone to Renee pretty quick. I've heard she's around and about in Switzerland, so that would be my advice. I mean, Paul, just going to ask you on Spain. I mean, Putellas has been ridiculous. Mariona looks even better than she did during the season, and I didn't think that was possible. Bonmati, I don't know how she's managed to recover from meningitis so quickly, and suddenly she's playing 90 minutes, looking sharp, beating players. And then I think one of the things that surprised me the most is their striker Gonzalez, who's just signed for Gotham. She looks an absolute player as well at 32. I mean, yeah. Are they living up to their bill of favourites? Do you think we've seen the best of them? And yeah, it's just choose any Spanish player you want to talk about. I mean, I feel like you could pick any at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we've seen the best of them. I hope they've peaked early and go downhill for the rest of the tournament. But I mean, they are something else. They are they're the Barcelona of international football at the moment, aren't they? There's so many players in Barcelona as well. But yeah, every single player you could talk about all day, just the brilliance that they've got there. And we've seen it coming over the last few years. I mean, obviously world champions a couple of years ago. We played them 3 years ago, and I was there for that quarter-final in Brighton. And you could see it then building, and it took we took extra time to beat them in that one. So yeah, you could see it back then. You've seen it coming for the last few years, and I think everything's just come together for them right now. And I mean, they do have a little weakness. They have a weakness at the back, but if they concede 3 goals, they can still score 5 or 6. Where there's a lot of teams that if they concede 3 goals, they're going to struggle to score 1. So as far as, they are great going forward. Dorian's just touched on it there. So they, when they go forward and they can score the goals, they do have that little weakness at the back, and that's something that when we play them in the final, we're going to have to, have the likes of Leslie Russo, Lauren James, Ella Toone up there getting in amongst those defenders, causing a nuisance. And okay, talking a little bit premature there, but let's not worry about that. But that's the way to break them down. But yeah, I could go on all night just talking about them. So I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think we all could, Paul, to be fair. I mean, they are almost worth tuning into the Euros for just on their own, watching them and the way they play. I mean, they are outstanding. I did think, though, Laura, against the Italians, they struggled, and there was a very marginal offside that, I don't know if you saw it, but it was like ever so tight, and the Italians would have had a penalty at 1-1 and potentially gone 2-1 up. The Italians have gone on to the other side of the draw, and they've got Norway and then potentially England. And they're my dark horses and the team that I support in the Euros. Do you think they've got any chance of firstly getting past Norway, but then also potentially get into the final, especially given how they performed against Spain?
As I say, I haven't seen much of the other games. We've obviously been away. It wasn't one of the ones I was keeping an eye on, if I'm being honest with you. But again, these are teams that people are kind of brushing aside because they're not in England, they're not a Germany, they're not a Spain, they're not. You can't brush these teams aside at all. We've seen it with Belgium against obviously England a few times where they've been able to catch them out and they know the tactics by now. But these teams will study teams like Spain and Spain and England and things like that. So it's just kind of, there's always going to be a dark horse team, and of course we know there is players in the Italian team that that quite a few people look at as well and think, oh, there's a good team there, but they just need that bit of time and effort and a bit more like money and things put into them for them to be able to believe what's going to go on going forward. Again, it's the FA that really needs to look into that for them and sort that out for them. But Norway have been looking pretty good as well, haven't they? Like Frida Maanum seems to be doing not too bad in there as well with 2 goals. I'm being honest with you, Jack, I'm going to bust your bubble, but I can't see Italy getting out of that one with Norway. I can't. They're not the same Norway that England beat in the last Euros either, are they? At first, in their first game, you're kind of like, here we go again with Norway, but they pull it back and then they've won the game since then, haven't they? So, yeah, I can't see them getting out of that one.
I was hoping you weren't going to burst the bubble. I'm going to the semi-final on that side of the draw. And
I'm Scottish, so I'm allowed to bust bubbles. My bubbles was bust way before this bloody Euros, so
I'm gonna keep the '82 Italian World Cup winning shirt packed in the suitcase ready, but we will see.
You're allowed that one since you're Italian as well, Jack. So we'll let you keep that hope going.
I mean, Paul, Frida's looking really good. I mean, she's knitting much of the stuff that Norway's doing together. I mean, I think she's looked more effective than Graham Hansen, than all these other big names. And yeah, again, so underrated, so hard-working. Do you think she's the key to Norway's success in a way more than someone like a Graham Hansen? Just because if Hansen gets the opportunities and really does, I don't know, gets the chances, then she can score. But Frida's knitting the defence together, the midfield together. I mean, so yeah, do you think she is the key for Norway, or would you still go with someone like a Graham Hansen who has that almost star quality?
I think the thing with Frida, we've seen it for us, is a bit like Lesia Russo. Her work rate a lot of the time goes under the radar because she's not scoring goals, from all over the pitch, but she's knitting together those link-up plays. She's getting the passes from one side of the pitch to the other, and she's setting up a lot of opportunities. Whether they amount to anything or not is another matter, but her work rate that goes in is immense. And if you look at a heat map of her, where she is on the ball through a game, she's all over that pitch. And I think that's the sort of player that Norway need in their side, because, like you said, they have got some star individuals, but you still need those players to pull them all together and just link it all up. And I think Frida's the perfect person to do that in that Norway squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ravi, one team we've not mentioned yet, and I think we are sleeping on because of their performance against Sweden. But I think it's probably one to remember that they had an early red card in that game, is Germany. Do you think we should be sleeping on them? Did that red card ruin what could have been a much closer game? And are they still really dangerous? Are they the team to stop Spain on that side of the draw? Or do you think they're almost still at the start of rebuilding a little bit?
I think they were in a better position than they were 3 years ago. When the last tournament was on. But I think either France or Germany has a chance to beat Spain. I think, along with us, we're probably the next tier below Spain in terms of the favourites. I think Spain are by far and away the biggest favourites of the tournament. But then you've got a tier below of, I think, us, France, and Germany. Well, I would probably put Netherlands in there as well if they didn't, concede 9 goals in the last 2 games. But I think Germany are a good team. They've got some great players there, and they've always been one of the big heavyweights in the Euro. So I think they have the capabilities to beat France and Spain. But I do think Spain can just decide to mow anyone over if they just decide to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a Spain-Germany game would be very interesting because they do look quite well compacted, Germans. I mean, Paul, one player for Germany that I know I was calling for Arsenal to sign quite often when she was on a free transfer at the end of this summer was Jules Brandt. And I don't know if you've seen her and some of her goals and the way she's attacked have been so direct. But yeah, do you think she's Germany's best player now and has stepped up in that attacking role in Pop's absence?
Yeah, I mean, somebody needed to fill those shoes, a bit like Russo's filled Ellen White for us. So yeah, I think she's stepped up. She's scoring some great goals for Germany, and if they hadn't have had that red card in the last match, you never know. It could have been a closer game. Probably, Sweden would have still probably edged it, looking at the way they were playing. But yeah, I think Germany are definitely one to watch. And like Ravi's just said, along with us and France, they're that level just below Spain for favourites to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Laura, how good is it to have a competition where there are genuinely 5 or 6 teams out of the 8 that if they won the Euros, you wouldn't be surprised? I mean, it's going to sound slightly harsh, but I think if Switzerland won it, we would all be pretty shocked. And as much as it pains me if the Italians won it again, that would be a shock. But anyone else has a good chance, don't they? Do you think that we're seeing a really high quality tournament, and just how important is that, especially with all the eyes on it? They've got sold out crowds, grounds are all full, and the actual games themselves, they're even. Anyone could take them.
Yeah, I mean, this year I know, like, speaking to like a few, like my dad and like my mum's partner and things like that, I know they're keeping an eye on it, which they usually don't do, but they have this year. Speaking to them, and like, I know my dad's obviously rooting for Spain, and you've got obviously others that are like, oh, Germany's looking not too bad, but could do better. We know that Germany could pop up from anywhere and do what they do. But this year it seems like there's a few teams that you like, oh, maybe they could win it, or actually, do you know what, they're going to win it, or they're going to. You really just don't know. When England won the Euros, you had that sense that England would probably win it. But this year, it's like I genuinely can't put my hand on who I think is going to win it this year. I think obviously after the quarters, you maybe have a better idea of who you genuinely think's going to do it. But obviously, looking at Spain, as Paul said earlier on, you're hoping they peaked a bit too early and they burnt themselves out by the time the quarterfinals come, and then there is a shock and they're out. You just never ever know with these competitions. You can never count on one team, or you can never ever count on your own team. You never ever know. Look at the Netherlands. People probably would never have thought that they were going to go out so early, or go out the way they did. You would have thought the Netherlands would have put up more of a fight than what they did as well. But yeah, it's a hard one to judge this year, and it has been good, and it's been a right good eventful watch along whenever you can get to watch them. And yeah, I can't put my finger on this year's competition and who the final is going to be or who the winner is going to be. I don't know if anybody else feels the same. I know 3 out of the 4 of us is probably hoping England, but yeah, I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great tournament in the sense that actually, yeah, you cannot figure out who's going to win it. I mean, the Netherlands felt like a bit of a one-woman side, really, with Vicky Pelova, and that was it. I mean, in their midfield and attack. I mean, Ravi, I'm going to ask you about this because I think one of the things that's most noticeable about this tournament, and you don't see it in every tournament, both men's and women's, is every single game, the crowds and the stadiums have looked packed out. They've looked full stadiums. How much do you think that is to do with the fact that the organisers have looked at the games? So Iceland, Finland, I think, was put in a capacity of around a 9,000 stadium. It filled out and it looked fantastic. It looked colourful. It sounded loud. And then obviously there's the element of the fact that Switzerland is in between France, Germany, Italy, and so many countries, making it easy to get to. So, yeah, do you think we're seeing almost a perfect place to hold a tournament? And also the organisation of it seems to be outstanding in that every game is put in the perfect size stadium for that match. And we're seeing high numbers and everything, really.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. They've credit. I don't really like giving too much credit to UEFA or FIFA because, quite frankly, they are abysmal. But this is the one thing that they've actually done pretty well. Like, you'd rather have 9,000 people fitting in a 9,000 seater stadium, making it loud, making it packed, like making it colourful. Mexican waves all over the place, I guess. And like, rather than having 9,000 people in a 60,000 seater stadium where it looks very scattered, it feels a bit drowned out because like 9,000 people can't make the noise of 60,000. And like, I think women's football is still going through the phase of trying to it's still being disparaged by a lot of misogynistic men, let's put it that way. And if they see a half empty stadium at a European Championship tournament, they are going to jump on that and say, oh, well, women can't fill out a stadium, kind of thing. So I'm really happy that that noise has not appeared at any of these games. The organisation of this has been done really well. Switzerland have been a great host, and I think geographically you're right. It's in the middle of basically every single country that's in this tournament, and yeah, the whole tournament just seems like a lot of fun. If I could, I'd love to be in the middle of Switzerland right now and just going from game to game.
Yeah, I'm felt very jealous of people so far that are there. I mean, Paul, obviously we've spoken a lot about the teams, but I'm just interested to hear about what you reckon have been the best set of fans so far. Because every single game we've watched, there's been obviously the Orange Army, which are always fantastic. We've got the Red Army with the Welsh. The Italians with their national anthems is always absolutely spot on. I mean, yeah, if you had an award for the best crowd so far you've seen, obviously the Swiss too, who would you give it to?
Oh dear, I mean, they're all different. They all bring something different to it. I think, probably going to have to say the Welsh. The way they've just come in and, no disrespect to the Welsh, but they went into this tournament as the underdogs. They went into what was referred to as the group of death, that there was realistically very little chance of them getting out of. But they went, their fans went, they sang, they made so much noise, and they haven't done themselves down at all. They've, as a team and the fans, they've done amazingly for the competition. But what will be interesting will be to see how full the stadiums are going into these knockout rounds. Because 3 years ago, when it was here, I remember I went to a semi-final between France and Germany, which was held at MK. And although it was saying it was a sellout, I think the attendance was actually just over half. The stadium was full. There were so many empty seats, and it was as if people were just buying tickets to get to the semi-final tickets, and then if their country wasn't in it, they weren't going. So, I mean, I had tickets to both semi-finals in the hope that England would be in one of them, and even I travelled straight down from Sheffield after we beat Sweden and went to MK to watch the France-Germany game just because why not? So I think that will be the true test when it comes to filling out stadiums. Is the group stages, yes, wonderful. They know roughly how many fans are going to come from each country, and we know that Finland, Iceland isn't going to be the biggest attendance, so they're never going to put it in a Wembley size stadium. But when it comes to, I don't know, say the Norway-Italy game, is if those teams weren't expecting to be playing in that game, how many of those fans have bought tickets for it? And are we going to still see the full stadiums moving forwards? We obviously will for the final, but yeah, the quarters and semis are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully, the whole of Switzerland. I mean, it sounds like, especially whilst they're still in the tournament, they've completely bought onto it. So hopefully, that stays the same. I mean, Laura, I don't know how many of these ones you've been able to see, but there's been some quite emotional moments during this tournament as well. I don't know if you've seen the images of the Welsh national anthem. There was Leah Volti and the Swiss team. I think pretty much all of them in tears in the dugout or in the tunnel before the first game. I mean, it's just been such a colourful tournament, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've seen a few pictures, and obviously as well as much as Wales taking the funny pictures at the start. How they come up with that team photo, I don't know. It's beyond me, but it's been funny to see the photos when they've been uploading them, and I often want to question why they come up with that kind of team photo. But yeah, and of course, obviously seeing one of your own in tears leading out our team, obviously for our home Euros, it was obviously a touch of the heartstrings for that one, especially with it being Wally. But yeah, from the games I've seen or the highlights that I've seen, that it just shows you how far women's football is coming along, and it's a slow process. But you know what they say: people who wait for things, good things come along eventually. And women's football is only just going to go up and up and up. We've seen it with the home Euros here. It went from one level to the next, and it's only going to be another level again for the women's football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ravi, I was having an interesting conversation with my dad the other day, and we were discussing do we think there'd have been a major impact in terms of England going out in the group stages, and if we think that would have had an impact here in England. So how important do you think it is that England got into the knockout rounds for women's football, the WSL, Arsenal? Yeah, because obviously it took off after the last Euros, but do you think a group stage exit could have severely impacted it, or do you think we're in a position where we are still fairly safe with people now flocking to the clubs and stuff?
I think it's important that we went through. I think you saw it last time, and obviously that was a home tournament, so that was a different set of circumstances. But I think there's a lot more Lionesses viewers than there are WSL viewers. I think having the tournaments and going really deep in the tournament is super important for the growth of the game domestically as well, just because it brings that familiarity with a lot more players. And once that familiarity is sort of like carried on, I guess, that's when you'll see people wanting to seek out the club football as well, because after 3 games, you can get connected to the team, but not if, you've got potentially another 3 games with those players and, they become even more household names than they already are. So for me, I think capitalizing on the success of last time out, going deep in another tournament is really important for the growth of the game domestically. Just because I think it gives you that momentum push once more to say, okay, that was here, and we're doing it in another country, in another tournament with another set of players, and it's just been really fun. So yeah, I think the game's just going to get stronger.
Touching on that a little bit, Jack, it would have been interesting to see how many people would have just been on the back of glory hunting if England did go out early. That would have been interesting numbers just to see what would have dipped if England had went out that so early in those groups. It would have been interesting to see the numbers for that going forward with the Euros altogether, because me looking in it as a neutral and just looking at it as in football sense, to me it seems like England are bringing a lot of the numbers outside the stands and in the stands. It's the biggest attendances, if I'm correct on that one, that are on TV and in stadiums. So it would have been interesting to see that one in numbers going forward if they had went out.
Yeah, I think definitely a relief that they didn't. I've just seen, I think Dorian put about the Norwegian national anthem at the start of that first game, and I think we can all agree that if you're going to start a tournament, that is the way to start it. I mean, that was pretty stunning, to be fair, that voice. I think we all would love to be able to sing like that in our showers, but I can only speak for myself, but I don't think I'm anywhere close to that. That was another really touching moment at the start. Just because we've got the hour
Scotland is actually quite a good anthem, by the way, if you listen to
it. I tell you what,
I
think there's one anthem that I've been very, very shocked by how bad it is, and it shocks me every time compared to all the others, and that is the English national anthem. I mean, I'm a long-held believer that they should go for Jerusalem like they do in the cricket, but before we finish off, I'm just going to ask the last question, which is, which quarterfinal are you guys most looking forward to, and who do you expect to win it? You've got a chance to change your predictions as we hit the quarterfinal stage. So we'll start off with you, Ravi, first, if that's okay.
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. I think the one that I'm looking forward to the most, obviously barring England and my home support for it, is Spain versus Switzerland. I just think tournament favourites, home nation, it's just a really well scripted game for the quarterfinal. So that's the one that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's just going to be a really good game. Hopefully, we've got Switzerland that ride that wave of home support and could potentially pull off something really special.
Yeah, completely agree. What about you, Paul? Is it the England one you're looking forward to most still? And if you want to change your prediction that England are going to win the Euros after what you've seen in the group, feel more than free?
I'm actually looking forward to all four. I think they're all going to be great games in their own right. Like Ravi's just said, you got Spain against Switzerland, tournament favourites against the host nation. Can't get much bigger than that. You've got France against Germany, two of the favourites against each other. You got England, Sweden. So again, holders against Sweden, who have done absolutely brilliantly in the group so far. And then you've got Norway and Italy, who, again, no disrespect to them, they're on that level just below the likes of your England, Spain, Germany, and France. So they're going to be quite evenly matched in there going through. So I think all four of them, I'm going to be sat there watching them all with a few beers.
Don't blame you. In this weather, Paul, it is the way to go. Just out of interest, what is the beer of choice for this Euros? And, if they want to sponsor the podcast at some point, feel more than free.
I've actually had a nice selection of beverages, but my favourite has to be a local producer's blackcurrant liqueur, which it tastes just like Ribena, but it's 24%, and it goes down so well after being in the freezer for a couple of hours first.
Tell you what, Paul, I'd be asleep by half time, I think, if I was drinking them.
Oh, dear, I went for a whole bottle during one of the games. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's literally made about 2 miles from my house.
Wow, it sounds good, to be fair. I mean, Laura, which game are you looking forward to? And you weren't on for the preview show, so yeah, who is your prediction to win it? You've got the chance now of, rather than picking from a full tournament, you've got only a few teams left. So who are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for the Germany and France game, simply because I know Germany will probably get a bit between their teeth after the way their obviously group stage went. Again, as a touch on it, I really can't put my my hand on it this Euros and who, but I think I'm going to stick with my dad on this one and go with Spain. I think Spain will win it this year, and it'll be obviously a World Cup winner and then a Euros winner, and then again, nations are going to have to step up their game going forward and have to come up with a plan of trying to beat this wonderful team of Spain. But yeah, people will maybe laugh at it and go, "Oh, she's Scottish," but I do have a wee bit in my heart for England. I've got English family. My dog's English. But yeah, but Spain's just tipping it for me. Watching them, you know what it's like. We think they maybe blew the lot on like the first couple of rounds, but they're so hard to even make up a game plan and think that you're going to win it. But yeah, I'll stick with Spain, and I'll see how I feel if England have to come up against them.
I really wish, Laura, that we had Mel on the podcast right now, because I got a sneaky suspicion.
But hey-ho.
Yeah, I've got a feeling she might have disagreed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Spain-Switzerland one, like everyone else. I think that's going to be a pretty special game, and I think if anyone can knock out Spain, it may well be quarter-final Switzerland, and just something special in the air, a late winner. They need their very own Stina Blackstenius to step forward. I know they've got a player who looks exactly like Alessia Russo, so maybe there's a bench lookalike Stina Blackstenius somewhere that they can bring on late on, and cause a few Barcelona players some flashbacks. I think the one thing I will add, my favourite thing I've seen is every single coverage of an Arsenal player so far this tournament. Nearly every commentator has described them as Champions League winning so-and-so. So it's always Champions League winning Frida Maanum, Champions League winning Stina Blackstenius. So yeah, my hope is that this is there to stay, and that all Arsenal players now should be referred to as Champions League winning before their names. But on that note of once again reminding us of our Champions League win, I'd like to thank you, Ravi, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate, speaking to you.
Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much as well.
Yeah, always good. Always a pleasure.
And Laura, thank you again, as always, especially for stepping up as my internet giving up at points.
I try my hardest, but it's hard work sometimes, so I just got to try and figure it out and move on. And of course, the good old internet is never trustworthy, so we'll always figure it out. But it's been good to be back on, and of course, being recuperated back from Egypt. At least I can get to watch all the games going forward, and hopefully I'll be a lot more in the loop in the next few podcasts to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, everyone watching, just enjoy the Euros and bask in the sun and the glory of watching, some really, really good football games at the moment. I think we're being very much spoiled with the quality of it. So thank you very much. And I'm sure by next week, we should hopefully have a semi-final show. And if it is on the Tuesday again, there could be a chance that I'll be joining you from Switzerland. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.